A little over a year ago, we got the release of Resident Evil 3 Remake, and that brought us back to Raccoon City for what may be the final time. With that though, brought us back to the long time question of what happened to Carlos after the events of Raccoon City tragedy, and can we see him return ever? Let's talk about it. According to Yasuhisa Kawamura, who is the screenwriter for the original Resident Evil 3, said that for Carlos, due to what happened, he fled the United States and returned to Mexico, where he harbors a mass amount of hatred towards the use of BOWs and Umbrella. He also stated that he probably got plastic surgery to avoid Umbrella or the government capturing him and forcing him to work for them, which was Leon's fate, of course. As we know, he has had to save the president more times than Ethan has had his hands cut off. Leon's not really had that great of a time after Raccoon City. This was never told in the game or the comics, so we can criticize it a bit. I don't think that he would have got plastic surgery, but I do buy into the camp that he fled to Mexico and is living in hatred. I could definitely see him continuing to train and staying in top shape for when he's needed again, and I feel like he's definitely seeing what went on in China during Resident Evil 6, Louisiana during 7, and now in what we're assuming is Romania in Resident Evil Village. I'm sure he stayed up to date on it all, and probably stayed in contact with Jill, who was being tested on by the BSAA, but as we know by 2017, the BSAA was the bad guys and Chris had moved to Umbrella, so it's safe to say that Jill is no longer with the BSAA and is likely with Umbrella, keeping Carlos up to date. And now that the BSAA is running haywire with BOWs as soldiers, then this would be an appropriate time for Carlos to come back, guns blazing, with Jill to meet up with Chris and fight through the BSAA one last time, or for Carlos, the first time. Before we get into that though, what had he been doing for the last 23 years leading up to Resident Evil Village? Without spoiling the Dark Side Chronicles, there is a breakout in South America that Leon and Krauser have to deal with, and I theorized that Carlos would have noticed it and had a part fighting and trying to save people out of fear that it could get nuked like Raccoon City did. In the anime film Resident Evil Vendetta, there was also an incident in Querétaro, which is one of the 32 states of Mexico, and one of the more quiet states as well, so assuming Carlos flees there, that would make perfect sense for him to be spending his time hiding out in Querétaro. So I'm sure if he did that, then he would have been aware of this battle and the outbreak that's taking place. That happens roughly 6 months before the events of Resident Evil 7, pulling Carlos back into the fight. If he returns for Resident Evil 9, and so does Jill, then this would mean that Jill would get revenge for the BSAA put her through from Resident Evil 5 on. Carlos would get to demolish everything, letting out 20 plus years of rage, and Chris could finally have peace after all the units he lost fighting for the BSAA. It's clear that in Village, thinking Ethan died messed with Chris, and we know the death of Pierce, which was preventable, definitely messed with Chris, as well as his units of the past dying. Literally everything this man comes into contact with dies. I think this would be a perfect way to send off the original cast and bring back Jill and Carlos and give them a happy ending together while Chris gets the closure that he deserves. Carlos returning would be a very nice and meaningful way to send off the original cast for the final time. It'd be very nice and an emotional goodbye, of course. I mean, it has to happen at some point. Capcom does these games in real time, and Chris and the others are getting very old. They're getting very close to 60, so it's almost time to say goodbye regardless, and I personally would like to see them all together for the final goodbye and send each other off in their separate happy endings. Maybe even throw in Shiva as a nice post-credit scene, but whatever happened to her is a video for another day. For now, all we can do is theorize what happened to Carlos and what would happen with the next installment of Resident Evil. So for now, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, try not to die, and I'll see you in the next video.